40 Verses on Reality, Part 3, by Sri Ramana Maharshi. To see God, be consumed in His infinite light of I Am. What is the truth of the scriptures which declare that if one sees the Self, one sees God? How can one see oneself? If, since one is a single being, one cannot see oneself, how can one see God? Author's comment. Can you ever see the self as an object? To see the self this way requires oneself to be and another self to see. This cannot be. So how do you turn around the light of consciousness to look back onto itself? Well, you don't. What you can do is to stop seeing your ego, the world, and God as real. Dismiss all three and you are left as the One. This does not need to be made more real. It is already entirely real. Self-inquiry reveals it does not transform. Practice note. To see God, know yourself. How? Inquire. Who am I? And trace your identity back to its source. To see God, be God. To see the Self, stand as the Self. Verse 22. Turn the mind inward. The divine gives light to the mind and shines within it. Except by turning the mind inward and fixing it in the divine, there is no other way to know him through the mind. Author's comment. How do you know the mind? The mind gets its light from the self. It does not stand in its own light. The mind is really an illusion of a separate entity called I. Can you really know something that is illusory? To know the mind, you must know its source, which is consciousness, the self. The mind cannot know itself. The mind cannot know the self. You can know, though. Just dismiss all that comes and goes and hold on to that which is always. That is the self. Practice note. Who knows the mind? Does the mind know itself? When you inquire, who inquires? Is it the mind? Verse 23. Inquire whence I emerges. The body does not say I. No one will argue that even in deep sleep, the I ceases to exist. Once the I emerges, all else emerges. With a keen mind, inquire whence this I emerges. Author's comment. When you inquire from whence does this I arise, you will notice that the body makes no claims of being I, of being your identity. The I found in the body is projected onto due to your own mistaken identity with it. Our language gives a hint about this. We say, my body, my arm, etc., indicating that the seeming owner of the body or the arm is different than the body. In deep sleep, your mind is dormant, so there is no I. In dreams, though, your mind is alert, and each dream has an I that is a central character in that dream. Where does this I come from? In both the dream and in the waking state, there is this I, and with it comes everybody else. the world, and whatever idea we have of a higher power. They all appear together as a set I, the world, and God. Practice note. So where does this I come from? What about in a dream? You have the same sense of reality in a dream. Where does this come from? It is easier to see in a dream that the I is not inherent, since you know that in a dream everything is only from your mind and memory. Both the dream and the waking state share a subject-object orientation. After inquiring about the source of the I in a dream, ask yourself the same question about the waking state. Verse 24. This inert body does not say I. This inert body does not say I. Reality consciousness does not emerge. Between the two, and limited to the measure of the body, something emerges as I. It is this that is known as Chit Jata Granti, also known as the knot between the consciousness and the inert, and also as bondage, soul, subtle body, ego, samsara, mind, and so forth. Author's comment. The body does not say I. The self has no I. So the metaphor of the knot between the consciousness and the inert is used to describe what seems to tie the self to the body. What is this knot? It certainly is the tangle of assumptions and ideas about who we are, what brings us happiness, what we are like, what the world is like, other people and relationships, and how we feel and think about all of this. It is a big mess. It is centered on the I thought. The core, the center of this knot is the I thought. After the I thought, the mind organizes thoughts of others, the world, and any higher power, all in a relationship to this I. This is why Ramana's emphasis is on self-inquiry. Practice note. This I thought is your idea of your identity. Is it always that same? Has it been different at one time in your life than from another? Is it present all the time, every day? What about deep sleep? There is no I thought then, and people find this deep sleep so refreshing. If the I thought is not present always, what is here always? How can anything that comes and goes be your real identity? Since you are not that which comes and goes, ask, who am I? You know that you exist. You are not what is temporary. Just what is your real identity? Verse 25. Investigate yourself, and all forms take flight. It comes into being equipped with form, and as long as it retains a form, it endures. Having a form, it feeds and grows big. But if you investigate it at this evil spirit, which has no form of its own, relinquishes its grip on form and takes to flight. Author's comment. The I thought starts with the assumption, I am this body. As long as this thought continues, then we are bound, as if by a rope that we ourselves tied. Seeing ourselves with a form, we see others and the world with forms too. But what happens if we start to investigate these assumptions and ideas? Looking within, we start to see that the body and all else are known, and that we must be the knower. We know all form, but we can't find a form for our real identity. We exist and we know we exist. But what actually exists? All we can find is consciousness and existence, always together, inseparable, and all objects are known by this consciousness existence. Objects are with form. You are formless. Practice note. To start to dissolve your ideas about form, inquire, who knows this? Look at your body. The body is objective to you, known by you. Who knows the body? Look at your senses. Senses are known. Who knows the senses? Look at your thoughts. Again, thoughts are known. Just who knows these thoughts? Look even to your sense of yourself, your ego. This ego is also known. Who knows the ego? Keep inquiring. Who am I? Is this one any different than the one who knows? Verse 26. Inquire, what is this ego? If the ego is, everything else also is. If the ego is not, nothing else is. Indeed, the ego is all. Therefore, the inquiry as to what this ego is the only way of giving up everything. Author's comment. Does the ego even exist? It seems to, so long as we hold it to be real. The seeming reality of the ego comes from you. You, the self, are always real. What appears as a real ego gets the reality from you, not from any illusory ego. Inquire into the ego, and you see that the source of the ego is your own existence consciousness. Is the pot other than clay? Practice note. Instead of, who am I? Inquire, what am I? Or, what is the nature of my existence? Is it anything physical, sensory, mental? Or are you the same during any changes of these? What is real is what remains the same always. What within you is real. Verse 27. Abide in one's true state, the non-emergence of I. The state of non-emergence of I is the state of being that. Without questioning for that state of the non-emergence of I and attaining it, how can one accomplish one's own extinction, from which the I does not revive? Without that attainment, how is it possible to abide in one's true state, where one is that? Author's comment. The I emerges when we think we are this individual, this body, this mind. It is the unchallenged assumption, this belief, that underlies the I thought. So how do we practice so as to see this state of non-emergence of I? First, inquire, what is the nature of my existence? When this inquiry is deep, you see that the ego never really existed to begin with. When you know this, how can any imagined I ever arise? Practice note. What is the nature of your existence? Are you a body? Are you one who acts and thereby has karma? Are you a thinker? Are you a spiritual practitioner? Or are you that which knows all of these? When you come to see the imagined snake as a rope, did the snake ever exist? Was it ever real? Verse 28. Dive into yourself to see where the I originates. Just as a man would dive in order to get something that had fallen into the water, so one should dive into oneself with a keen, one-pointed mind, controlling speech and breath, and find the place whence I originates. Author's comment. Where does this sense of I come from? You should thoroughly investigate this. The seeming I has only the reality that you give to it. Control of speech and breath bring a quiet mind. It is with this quiet mind that inquiry can dive deep. It is when you dive deep into yourself that you can see what you are not, and so reveal your real identity as the open, knowing consciousness in which everything arises, and that is illuminated by its own light. This is your identity, your only reality. Practice note. Inquire. Notice that you exist and you know that you exist. Then investigate. Where does this sense of I come from? Is it the body? How can this be? The body does not say I. The only I find is one that I superimpose upon this body. Does it arise with the sense? I can't find it in the senses either. It is from the flow or breath, an energy through the body. Breath does not say I. Prana does not say I. I know breath and prana. Who is it that knows? Is it with thoughts that the I comes? I know these thoughts, and they do not know me. How can thought be I? Is it the intellect that makes meaning out of the thoughts from which I arises? The ego rises from the intellect, and this ego is known. Otherwise, it would have no effect. Who knows the inconstant ego? Does this I even come from the bliss of deep sleep, in which the ego and the mind are silent, from which the world seems to arise when awake? But I know this. I know I slept, and sleep comes and goes. I cannot be anything that is temporary. So who am I? If not the body, sense, prana, thought, intellect, or the bliss of sleep? Who knows all of these? Verse 29. Seek only the source of I. The only inquiry leading to self-realization is seeking the source of I with interned mind without uttering the word I. Meditation on I am not this, I am that may be an aid to the inquiry, but it cannot be the inquiry. Author's comment. Contemplating I am that, or reflecting on it, are mental activities. They might help your mind prepare for inquiry, but since they are mental, they are not the inquiry itself. The inquiry goes beyond what is merely mental, into the knowledge existence that is your existence. Practice note. Inquire. Dismiss every idea. Dismiss anything that has a cause, or has a beginning, or that which changes. What remains? That is what you are looking for. Dive into that. If you enjoyed this recording and would like to support this work getting out to a wider audience, please consider joining our Patreon, where different tiers allow you to submit personal questions, which will be addressed on one of the upcoming Q&A sessions, one-on-one chats, or even join one of our camping excursions. Currently, we host the camping excursions of Wild Satsang in Joshua Tree National Park in California. Go check out wildsatsang.org for more. Thank you for listening. Love you.